Keep your distance, pal.
Dr. Jones's big AAA game is finally here, and with it comes that classic adventuring we're used to seeing when Indy is on the screen. From delving into dank crypts to punching fascists in the face, it's all here. In this video, we will avoid story spoilers and any mid to late game tools you might get. It's an Indiana Jones game. Discovering things on your own is like 99% of the fun. With that, here are a few tips for the early sections of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Exploration is a huge part of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and I'd go as far as saying it's way more important than combat. So with that in mind, at the outset, you'll do a couple linear quests, which are all built up until you arrive at the Vatican. This is the first, we'll just call it mini open world. Here you'll be ushered around to complete your main objectives, but you're also free to explore at your leisure. This means you can search around for photo ops, find adventure books to level Indy up, discover notes to earn adventure points, etc.
What's this?
You can even complete side quests. However, they don't show up on your map like you think they would, which leads to our next tip. Side quests are called Fieldwork in this game, and you won't just find dozens of exclamation marks on your map to start them. For example, an early main story quest has you taking pictures of inscriptions scattered around the Vatican, of which you only need 4. Once you turn in this quest, Antonio, the NPC who assigned it to you, will suggest that you find 6 more for him. And so, while the main quest will continue the story, this job gets added to your Fieldwork tab. Another not-so-obvious example is you might come across a seemingly random note. The note may mention that a child has been locked up for stealing artifacts. There might be more to this story, and thus a Fieldwork is added to your journal for Indy to investigate. Leveling is a bit different than what you might be used to compared to other games of this style. The Great Circle is first and foremost a stealth game. You don't have to stealth if you don't want to, but you don't get anything for beating dudes to a pulp, except maybe an opportunity to waste all of your bandages and, die. Instead, Indy will level by discovering and looting things in the world. First, adventure books are key to powering up Indy. There's no leveling system or skill trees. Instead, you'll find an adventure book that, for example, lets you hit harder. Awesome! To unlock this skill though, you'll need to spend adventure points, money, or medicine bottles, depending on the book, which all come from exploring and looting everything that you find. And there are a lot of things to find. So anytime you see a glowing note or a piece of loot, there is a good chance that you've either found some money, special loot, or something that will give you adventure points. Be sure to keep an eye out for the camera symbol on the top left of your screen. If you see it pop up, that means there's something near you that you can take a picture of, which will net you more adventure points as a photo op. If you need help finding these collectibles, you can go to the shop and buy brochures that will mark them on your map. Just know that these are pretty expensive, and money isn't exactly the easiest thing to come across. While the big, bright open streets of the Vatican are nice to stroll around, you will often find yourself delving into dark crypts. You'll get a lighter later on, but starting out, you'll need to manage keeping a torch around. You'll want to make sure you light every brazier that you find. Not only do they provide a source of light and a breadcrumb trail to track where you've been, but they can relight any torches you find just in case you lose yours. If you lose your torch, you can oftentimes find jars of unlit torches for you to grab, or sometimes you can find them on the wall. Another big hurdle is that Indy will drop his torch when performing various actions. For example, if you need to swing over a gap or climb up a ledge, once you extend your whip, he'll drop the torch. To counter this, aim and throw your torch to where you're headed. That way you can swing across or climb up and then snag your torch off the ground. You can throw your torch through gaps in walls as well. An early puzzle you'll find has you squeezing through a gap in the wall, only for water to extinguish your flame. When things like this happen, it's very likely that the room has a window for you to toss your torch through. Furthermore, try to avoid using your torch to bash enemies, as it'll break and you'll be without a light source. Instead, drop it and either use your fists, whip their weapon out of their hand, or just find something else laying around. Once the combat is over, pick up your torch. Okay, so that's it for the big tips, but there are a slew of smaller things you should look out for as well. First, climbing takes stamina, so make sure Indy is rested before trying to make it up a big wall. You can give yourself an extra boost of stamina by eating a piece of fruit. Fruit will give you bonus to your stamina, while bread gives you bonus to your health. Next, white chalk, or paint, I don't know. It's the yellow paint of this game. If you see a ledge or door covered in white chalk or paint or tape or whatever, that typically means you can climb or interact with it in some way. You'll occasionally come across lockboxes with either a lock or a combination. If it requires a combination, look for a nearby note or just something to interact with around the lockbox, as the code is typically nearby. If it's a small lock, shoot it open with your revolver, or hit it with something heavy. If you need to know where to go for your currently tracked quest, bring up your map. Not only will it show you on the map where to go, but it'll also create a waypoint out in the world for you to follow. You can go into your exploration difficulty settings and set it to always show the waypoint if you'd like. And finally, if you get busted in the city, either by doing something like cracking your whip too close to people or hanging out near a guard who can see through your disguise, it's best to run away and hide. It takes a while, but if you break the enemy's line of sight, the flashing circle next to your health bar will eventually stop pulsing, allowing you to once again be incognito. As I mentioned, stealth is your best friend in the Great Circle, as there aren't a lot of reasons to fight. So let's first go over a few ways to slink your way through the game. At the beginning, the enemy AI is pretty dumb. It's kind of your typical stealth game. An enemy will spot you, and if the circle above their head completely fills up, they'll yell out and alert everyone around them. You can use this to your advantage by having them spot you and luring them around the corner to knock them out. You can also sneak up on enemies with a melee weapon in hand and knock them out that way as well. Just make sure to hide the body, as other patrolling enemies can find it and will start screaming. Also, Indy has a lean function that is quite useful when peering around corners. As long as you have something in your hand, you can hold the left trigger and click on the left or right stick to lean. This allows you to see around corners while remaining hidden. Because we're trying to stay out of combat, if you happen upon an area where a fight seems unavoidable, just keep looking around. Whether there's a ledge to grab onto or an area to swing from your whip, there's almost no reason to fight unless you want to, so try and be creative. Everything is a weapon in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And when I say everything, I mean most things. Littered around combat zones will be various one-handed and two-handed weapons for Indy to pick up and use. And that's a good thing, because everything falls apart after just a few swings. Honestly, all the weapons in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle make the weapons in Breath of the Wild seem like the Master Sword. Even the sticks. Also, anything you find can be thrown, be it to distract guards so you can sneak around, or heck, even throw a hammer at a man's face. But once you're in smacking range, it's never long before the item crumbles to dust. So always be on the lookout for things to pick up. A few early disguises, like the clerical suit and the black shirt uniform, come with a weapon in your satchel that never goes away. It can still break, but you can use a repair kit to fix it. Just know that repair kits are few and far between, and your weapon will still break constantly, so use these sparingly to knock out a guard if there's nothing else around. Finally, we can't move on from the weapons section without mentioning Indy's famous revolver. The revolver is deadly, but I'd recommend against using it too much. Ammo is incredibly sparse, and shooting the gun will alert everyone within the vicinity. I'd say you should only use it if you have no other option. Everyone's already alerted, and you just need to quickly thin out the herd of enemies. Alright, now you've done it. You've alerted some enemies, and now it's time to throw hands. Combat in this game is slapstick levels of fun. It's all about using the environment to your advantage. You can dodge around while fighting and parry to block and launch counterattacks at foes. Early on, most of the fights play out in the fashion of you whipping an enemy, which stuns them and makes them drop their weapon, only for you to then pick it up and use it against them. Again, you can throw your weapon at the enemy for a fun ranged attack. But unless they're stunned, they're really good at dodging them. Heck, if they're on full alert, they can even catch the weapon. The gamut of enemies early on ranges from scrawny little dudes to big muscle boys to even healers. For the scrawny dudes, just knock them out, they're weak. For the muscle guys, they'll block a lot of your attacks. Hold the attack button, which consumes a bar of stamina, to give them a hard thwack to break their guard. Then trade blows with them, mixing in dodges and parrying. Be mindful that everything you do costs stamina, so don't just go crazy with your attacks and dodges. Running out of stamina will blur your screen and massively slow down your punches and dodges, and we don't want that. For the healers, you'll occasionally spot enemies in some cloth robes with crosses on them. These guys fight like a heavy and almost always drop a bandage when they're taken out. But watch out, if you let them linger too long, they could resurrect one of your fallen enemies, even though I'm pretty sure I caved that dude's skull in with a hammer, but okay. What you're wearing out in the world or in combat scenarios matters. You might need the clerical suit to sneak around the Vatican, or a black shirt to enter the boxing ring, but if you know you're going to be fighting, you should switch to Indy's outfit. Doing this will grant you fortitude, which allows you to take more hits in combat by adding a gold bar to your health. You can't switch outfits while in combat, so if you're in a crypt and you know there's zero reason to look like a man of the cloth, might as well toss on the fedora. And that will do it for this video. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a huge game, and we've basically only covered essential tips to get you through the Vatican area. There's still a lot of game for you to see, so as you dive in, make sure to have IGN's wiki near you for all your collectible needs. And of course, for everything else, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, whip it on over to IGN. That was dumb. Okay.